AITA for denying my sister my apartment after learning my parents' dark secret? My name is Amanda, and I have been working in Seattle for almost a year. It has been a big change, but mostly a good one. New streets, another routine, different people. The feeling of starting from scratch. I live in a small apartment in Seattle, close to the office, and I almost always leave home when it is still dark. Sometimes I look out the window and wonder what my parents back in Chicago are thinking about. Whether they truly miss me or only talk about me when they need to tell someone they have a daughter living on the West Coast. I barely know anything about my younger sister. I left my parents and my sister Kayla back there, although saying I left her sounds more dramatic than it actually was. The truth is we were never the kind of family glued together by hugs and daily calls. Kayla and I always had a strange relationship, if you could even call it a relationship. We were like two parallel lines. She is 8 years younger than me. When I was dealing with high school problems, she was still playing with dolls. When she entered adolescence, I had already finished college and was fully immersed in my job. We lived in the same house but in different worlds, and we only truly crossed paths during Sunday family dinners or at Christmas. Over time, our communication was reduced to a couple of text messages for birthdays and Merry Christmas. Before coming to Seattle, I no longer lived with my parents. I had my own place in Chicago, a nice apartment in a quiet building, very close to a large private university. The funny thing is how I ended up there. That apartment had belonged to my grandmother Vivian, and I had known it since I was a little girl. It was almost like an extension of my home. After college, I got a good job in the financial department of a company. It did not make me rich, but I earned a good living. Enough to stop thinking only about paying rent and start thinking about buying something of my own. After 3 years of working, I felt it was time to stop throwing money away on rent. One night, while having dinner at home, my parents mentioned my grandmother's apartment. "We have been renting it out," my mom said while serving dinner. "But if you want, we could sell it to you," my dad added as if it were the most natural idea in the world. The more I thought about it, the more perfect it seemed. I knew that place by heart. The Sunday afternoons watering the plants on the balcony with my grandma, the smell of freshly brewed coffee, her chocolate chip cookies, the armchair where she would fall asleep watching her soap operas. The price they proposed was reasonable, the area was good, and the idea of returning to that space but now as an owner gave me a strange sense of security. So I did it. With a loan, my savings, and a lot of calculating. I paid them $10,000 for the apartment. We signed the papers and had the documents notarized. I moved in there, and for several years it was my home, my first truly owned place. I was proud. Then the opportunity to come work in Seattle came up. They offered me a better salary, growth possibilities, and the chance to know another part of the country. It was an easy decision, but in the end I accepted. I did not want to sell the apartment. It was my first real investment, my backup plan, the place I could return to if I ever went back. I put it up for rent, and with that I helped cover expenses and save a little more. I continued paying for my things in Seattle, and felt that I was finally building something solid for my future. On a random day, I was at my desk reviewing work emails when my phone lit up with an incoming video call. I saw the name on the screen and froze. Kayla. I had to look twice. I could not remember the last time we had a real conversation beyond sending a meme or a happy birthday. For a moment I just stared at the phone, wondering if something serious had happened. Finally I swiped to answer. "Hello," I said, trying to hide my surprise. "Amanda," she replied with a cheerful voice that confused me. She looked like she had her hair tied back in a messy ponytail and slight bags under her eyes. "How are you? How is work? Do you have a boyfriend? Tell me everything." The questions came out one after another, as if we talked like this every week. I gave her the basic answers. I told her work was going well, that I was learning a lot, that I was still single, and that for now I wanted to focus on my career. I also told her I did not know exactly when I planned to move back to Chicago, that for now Seattle was a long-term experiment. "That is perfect," she said, and I could hear the smile in her voice. "I am so happy for you." She paused briefly. "I just started college," she continued proudly. "Did not Mom and Dad tell you?" "No, they did not tell me anything," I replied, feeling a small knot in my stomach. "Actually, we have not been talking much lately. We have all been busy," she murmured, brushing it off. Well, anyway, she continued excitedly, the thing is, I talked to them, and they told me I could stay in your apartment while I study. She said it as if she were saying it was going to rain tomorrow. Is not it great? It is only a few blocks from the university. That way I do not spend money on transportation, and on top of that I do not have to pay rent. I am going to save a ton. I felt my jaw tense. I gripped the phone tighter, trying to process what I had just heard. The casual way she announced she was going to live in my apartment made me burn inside. I took a deep breath so I would not snap right away. Kayla, wait a minute, I interrupted, cutting off her list of plans. You cannot just decide you are going to live there. Why not? She asked, genuinely confused. Mom and Dad already said yes. They said there was no problem, that the apartment is theirs. I closed my eyes for a second. I felt the frustration rise like a strange heat at the back of my neck. They are not the ones who have to give you permission, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. You need my permission, not theirs. You cannot move in just because they said so. On the other side of the screen, Kayla frowned. But you lived there for years without paying anything. Now it is my turn. It is fair, is not it? It is not, I replied, already irritated. And besides, the apartment is not empty. What do you mean it is not? She replied. They told me it is just sitting there unused, waiting. I am renting it out, I answered. From that rent I get a part of my income, and if I decide to return I need to have a place to live. I am not going to arrive in my city and find my house occupied. Kayla let out a little laugh that made me clench my teeth. Come on, Amanda, you make good money. If you come back you can rent something else. It is not like you are going to end up on the street. I remained silent for a second, not for lack of an answer, but out of disbelief. The idea that I should pay another rent so she could live for free in a place I had bought seemed absurd to me. No, I finally said in a cold voice. Absolutely not. I am not going to pay another rent so you can live for free in my apartment, I continued. It is not going to happen, Kayla. But Mom and Dad. I do not care what Mom and Dad said. I cut her off more sharply than I intended. The answer is no. I hung up before she could keep insisting. My hand was shaking when I left the phone on the desk. I tried to go back to work, but every number, every email seemed distant. I mentally replayed the conversation over and over. I knew it was not over. In my family, nothing was resolved with a single conversation. There was always the second round, the serious phone call, the moral lecture. That night, already in my small apartment, I put my food in the microwave, trying not to think about anything. Just as I was about to sit down to dinner, the phone vibrated again. It was my mom. I let it ring a couple of times while taking a deep breath. I knew exactly what was coming. Finally I answered. Hello, Amanda. She began with that tone I had known since I was a teenager. That you're in trouble tone. We need to talk about what happened with Kayla. I took the plate to the sofa and left it on the table without taking a bite. Yes, I suppose we do, I replied. I do not understand why you are being so difficult about this, my mom said bluntly. You should not treat your sister like that. It is only for a while she studies. She is family. Nothing terrible is going to happen if she stays in the apartment. I ran my hand through my hair, trying not to raise my voice. Mom, it is not about whether she is my sister or not, I said slowly. I cannot just let her move in there. And why not? She replied in annoyance. What happens when she does not want to leave? I continued. What happens when I want to come back and have to fight with my own sister to get my house back? Do not be dramatic, my mom scoffed. That is not going to happen. You do not know that, I replied. Besides, why do not you guys help her pay for a room somewhere else? Why does it have to be my apartment? I asked. There was a short silence on the other end. We already spent all our money on Kayla's college, she finally said. We cannot afford to pay rent on top of that. I got up from the couch and started pacing back and forth. Well, I do not want her living there, I said. I do not know what might happen to the place, and besides, I repeat, I am renting it out. If she moves in, I stop receiving that income and end up paying the utilities while she lives for free. Could you stop being so harsh? My mom replied irritably. She is your younger sister. You have to help her. Unless you and Dad want to pay me rent for her, I added. The silence that followed was heavy. Are you hearing what you are saying? She exploded at last. I cannot believe how shameless and selfish you have become. Demanding rent from your own sister. What is wrong with you? Selfish, I repeated, feeling my eyes burn. Is it selfish to want to keep the apartment I bought with my money? The apartment for which I paid you $10,000, I added. Have you forgotten about that already? That has nothing to do with it, she replied sharply. It has everything to do with it, I said, almost screaming. That apartment did not fall from the sky. I bought it with years of hard work. It was not handed to me. The call dropped suddenly. She was gone. The following week was a desert. Not a single call from my mom. Not a message from Kayla. I also stayed quiet. I threw myself headfirst into work. I tried to fill my schedule with meetings and reports, but the knot in my stomach was there, hard, constant. Every time my phone vibrated, I jumped, but it was never them. It was as if we had suddenly stopped being family. One day, in the middle of a presentation, I felt my phone vibrate several times in my pocket. I ignored it, embarrassed, as I spoke in front of my boss and other colleagues. When I finally had a break, I looked at the screen. Several missed calls from the same number. Aunt Carol. We were not particularly close, but she had always been the one who tried to calm things down when there was family drama. I answered immediately. Hello, Aunt Carol. Amanda, she said with her usual slightly hoarse voice. What is going on with your family? I just talked to your mom and I noticed she sounded different. I let out a long sigh and closed my office door. It is a disaster, Aunt Carol, I replied. Over the next 20 minutes, I told her everything. Kayla's call, the conversation with my mom, the story about the apartment. She listened in silence, only letting out small ahas and "oh, I understand you" from time to time. When I finished, there were a few seconds of silence. I see, she finally said. Have you tried talking to Kayla again? But really face to face. Well, via video call at least. What for? I asked, tired. They just want the apartment for her. Sometimes things are not that simple, she replied, softly but firmly. Call her, she insisted. But look each other in the face. Explain the apartment situation to her clearly, and also listen to where she is coming from. There might be things neither of you is seeing. I wanted to argue, to say it made no sense, but something in my aunt's tone made me think twice. Maybe she was right. That night after work, I sat in front of the laptop, looked at my reflection in the dark screen, took a deep breath and opened the video call app. I searched for Kayla's name, and before I could regret it, I dialed. She answered almost immediately. She looked tired. Her hair was tied back in a careless ponytail, and behind her, I could see a small room with books piled on the desk. Hello, I said, trying to sound neutral. Can we talk? She nodded seriously. Okay, I need to understand something. I started. Why are you so determined to live in that specific apartment? Why do not you rent a room near the university like any student? Kayla pressed her lips together for a second. Why should I pay rent if Mom and Dad told me I can stay in their apartment? She replied. They told me you lived there for years without paying anything. The blow was direct. Mom and Dad said it was their apartment, that Grandma left it to them, and that now it is my turn to use it while I study, she continued, lifting her chin. That is all there is to it. I do not understand why you are making such a big deal out of it. I looked at her in silence for a few seconds. I felt a strange exhaustion. Kayla, I have to show you something, I finally said. I opened a folder on my laptop and shared the screen. Scans of deeds, contracts, and payment receipts appeared in front of us. That apartment has not belonged to Mom and Dad for years, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. I bought it. I pointed to the date on the deed. There is the date, there is the amount, there are their signatures and mine. I paid them $10,000. It is not a loan, it is not a favor, it is a sale. Kayla stood very still, looking at the screen with her eyes wide open. She was not even blinking. That cannot be, she whispered at last. They told me something else, she added. They told me the apartment still belonged to them, that you were just using it. She shook her head, as if she could shake off the information. Why would they lie to me like that? She murmured. How could they forget that they sold you the apartment? I felt an uncomfortable mix of anger and pity. I tried to lighten the mood a bit, without entirely succeeding. Well, at least the money was used for something good, I said, forcing a weak smile. Mom told me they spent it on your college, that was why they could not help you with rent anymore, because everything went toward your studies. Kayla looked at me as if I had just spoken in another language. Amanda, she said slowly, I am on a full scholarship. Mom and Dad have not paid a single dime for my tuition. My blood ran cold. What? A full scholarship, she repeated. The university covers everything for me. I stared at the screen not knowing what to say. The week before, my mom had told me they could not help Kayla with housing because they had spent everything on her college. And my sister had just told me that, in reality, they had not paid anything. A strange long silence followed. Do you remember when I wanted to take dance classes in high school? Kayla suddenly asked, her voice trembling a little. Mom told me we could not because they had just bought a new laptop for you for college, that there was no money left for my whims. I frowned. I never received a laptop from them, I said. I bought one myself with money from a summer job. Kayla leaned toward the screen. Do you remember the summer camp all my friends and I wanted to go to? She continued. Mom told me they could not pay for me because they had spent a ton on your admission forms and exams, that everything was super expensive. I went blank for a few seconds. I applied for fee waivers, I said very slowly. I filled out all the forms by myself because they told me they had nothing to help me with, I added. They always told me there was no money, that if I wanted to study I had to get scholarships, that they could not chip in a dime. We both stayed quiet. Then we started remembering more things, one after another. Each story clicked with another. There is no money because your sister spent it, had its mirror on the other side. It was like putting together an old puzzle and realizing that the picture you always thought you saw was not real. I cannot believe it, Kayla murmured on the verge of tears. They pitted us against each other with lies. That night after hanging up with Kayla, I felt like my head was going to explode. The next day I called Aunt Carol again. I needed to hear another voice. You two talked, right? She said as soon as she answered. Yes, I replied, sitting on my apartment sofa with the phone pressed to my ear. We found out some very weird things, I continued. I told her about the scholarship, the apartment, the cross stories, the recycled excuses. They told each of us that the other was the reason why nothing could be done, I explained the whole time. On the other end of the line, I heard my aunt take a deep breath. Amanda, sweetie, sit down properly, she finally said with a more serious tone. There is something I have to tell you about your parents, something I should have told you years ago. I remained in silence, gripping the phone. What is it? I asked with a tight stomach. Your grandmother Vivian gave them money every month, she began. It was a significant amount, and it was specifically for the two of you, for you and for Kayla, so you would not lack anything. I felt a chill. What do you mean specifically for us? I asked. Your grandmother wanted to make sure her granddaughters were well taken care of, my aunt explained. But your parents used that money for themselves. The cheapest groceries for the house, she continued. The most basic clothes for you, and for them expensive restaurants, fine clothes, little luxuries you never saw. I stayed quiet, staring at a spot on the floor. Besides, she went on, in her will, your grandmother left extra money apart from the apartment, just for the college education of the two of you. It was a condition for your mom to receive that part of the inheritance. I felt my fingers loosen. What? I whispered. Your grandmother wanted to make sure both of you could go to college without worrying so much about money, Aunt Carol said. She was very clear about that. That money was for her granddaughters, not for trips, not for restaurants. I slumped on the couch as if my strength had left me. But Kayla and I studied with scholarships, I said. They never put anything toward our tuitions, they always said they could not. I know, she replied softly. They kept that money, just like the monthly deposits your grandmother sent them for you. A heavy silence fell. How do you know all this? I managed to ask. Aunt Carol sighed tiredly. It was by accident, she said. One day your mom was supposed to be on a work trip out of town. I went out to lunch with some friends and saw her in a very expensive restaurant in Chicago with your dad. She was wearing a new outfit, new jewelry, new everything. She paused briefly. I knew how much they earned. I knew that lifestyle could not come just from their salaries. She continued. I confronted her right then and there. I asked her where they got that money from, and she spilled it like it was nothing. She said it was her business, that your grandmother sent them money, and that you girls did not need that much. And Grandma? I asked. She did not know. When I told your mom I was going to talk to your grandmother, she got furious. Aunt Carol continued. She told me that if I dared to say anything, she would turn her against me. She would write me out of the will. She would make the whole family turn their backs on me. You know me, Amanda. I got scared, I kept quiet, and I regret it every day. I did not say anything I could not. We argued badly that day, she added. And after that we barely spoke again. I should have insisted. I should have gone straight to your grandmother, but I did not. I am sorry, sweetie. You and Kayla deserved to know the truth much sooner. I felt something break inside me. Years of effort, of guilt, of tension over money, were suddenly seen in a different light. We lived our whole lives pinching every penny, I said, barely audible. Mom spent hours comparing prices in the supermarkets, scolding us if we wanted an ice cream, telling us we had to be responsible, that there was no money for treats. They never took us on vacation anywhere. Not even once. I remembered the lines at discount stores, the second-hand uniforms, the shoes bought a little too big so they would last. And meanwhile, I said, but did not finish the sentence. You already know the rest, my aunt murmured. Every time they went on a work trip and left you with your grandmother, they were actually going on vacation, she added. Expensive hotels, cruises, beaches, all paid for with the money that was supposed to be for you. I remembered the times I saw them leave with new suitcases, excited, saying they were going to a city with horrible weather for girls. I remembered how they came back tanned, relaxed, with souvenirs for their work friends, never for us. Everything made sense. The next day, I requested emergency vacation time at work. I did not give many details, I just said I had to travel for an important family matter. My boss looked me in the eyes and without asking too many questions, approved the request. In less than 48 hours, I was on a plane back to Chicago. I did not know exactly what was going to happen, but I did know I could not keep pretending nothing had changed. Kayla picked me up at the airport. The drive into the city went by with us talking, piecing together everything we knew now, comparing memories, filling in blank spaces. They used us, she kept saying, gripping the steering wheel. They pitted us against each other so neither of us would ask too many questions. I did not know what to reply. We arrived first at Kayla's dorm where I dropped off my small suitcase. Then, without wasting much time, we went to our parents' house. From the outside, everything looked the same as always. The manicured lawn, freshly painted fence, the new car in the driveway, the exact same one they had always presented as necessary for work. I wondered how many other things were lies. My mom opened the door with that automatic smile she put on when she was expecting someone. The smile half faded when she saw us together. Girls, she said, surprised. What are you two doing here? We need to talk, I replied, walking in without waiting for an invitation. And Dad? I asked. In the study, she answered, following us. We went all the way to the back of the house. My dad was sitting in front of his tablet, reading something. He looked up and smiled confusedly. What a surprise, he said. I definitely did not expect this. We did not come to surprise you, I replied, feeling my heart race. We came because we already know everything. The word everything hung in the air. We know about the money Grandma sent you every month for us, I said. We know about the money she left in the will, specifically for our studies. We know you kept everything, Kayla added with a firm voice, even though her hands were shaking. We know you never paid our tuitions, that we did it all with scholarships. A heavy silence fell. My mom looked first at one, then at the other. Her expression changed from surprise to something colder, more calculated. My dad slowly put the tablet down on the desk. I was expecting denials, screaming, tears, some attempt to justify themselves. That was not the case. Well, my mom said, lifting her chin. I do not see what good it does to talk about that now. It is in the past. What do you mean it is in the past? I asked in disbelief. You took money that was not yours, money Grandma gave you for us, and spent it on yourselves. We fed you, clothed you, educated you, my dad intervened. Calm down. Nobody can say we neglected you, he added. We did not do anything wrong. Nothing wrong. Kayla asked, her voice breaking. You lied to us our whole lives. You told us there was no money for a course, for a camp, for a school bus, because supposedly you had spent it on the other one. You made us feel guilty for asking for normal things. My mom waved her hand, as if shooing away a mosquito. We lived the way we deserved, she said. It was our money in the end. Your grandmother gave it to us. She gave it to us, I corrected her, pointing to Kayla and myself. She wrote it down. She said it. It was for her granddaughters. So what? You cannot prove anything now, my mom replied with a coldness that froze me. The money is gone, it is over. You are not going to get it back, so stop creating drama, she added. The calm way she said it, without an ounce of shame, hurt me more than any scream. They did not apologize. Not a word of regret, nothing. For a moment I felt a ringing in my ears. I looked at Kayla. Her eyes were full of tears, but she stood her ground. I took a deep breath. Something settled inside me. You are right about one thing, I said suddenly, very calmly. The money is gone, we are not getting it back. I paused. But there is something else that does end today, I continued. Our relationship with you is over. Amanda, do not be ridiculous, my mom snapped, annoyed. You cannot stop talking to your own mother over money. It is not about the money, I replied. It is about the lies, the years of manipulation, how you turned us against each other, how you kept what was not yours and on top of that made us feel ungrateful. My dad snorted. Do whatever you want, he said, shrugging his shoulders. In the end, you have always been dramatic. There was one more silence. No one moved. Let's go, Kayla, I finally said. We turned around and walked out of the house. There were no hugs, no I am sorry, just the sound of the door closing behind us. We did not look back. That was 6 months ago. My life in Seattle continues with its routines and long days, but something changed inside. Kayla and I talk almost every day now through video calls, text messages, voice notes where she tells me how she is doing in college, and I tell her the office gossip. We are real sisters for the first time. I helped her find a small apartment near her university in Chicago. I pay her rent. She covers the rest with a part-time job at a coffee shop. She does not like depending on me. She always says, it is temporary. You will see, one day I will treat you to dinner. And I reply that she does not have to prove anything to me. The last time I was in Chicago, we had dinner together in her small apartment. She made pasta with a sauce she almost burned, but we ate it anyway, laughing. We talked until late, remembering painful things without them hurting so much anymore, planning vacations that this time will be real, just the two of us. As I watched her talk, moving her hands, laughing, I understood something simple. Our parents took our money, they took opportunities, they took our peace of mind, but inadvertently, they gave us something they never intended to. They left us each other. In their attempt to tear us apart with lies, they ended up bringing us closer than ever. That truly is ours, and this time, no one can take it away from us. Yeah. Comment. This story really stayed with me. I hope it touched you in some way too. I've learned that protecting your own peace is never selfish. It's actually an act of deep self-respect. Setting clear boundaries shows you value yourself. Real healing starts when we choose honesty with the people we love. Taking responsibility for your happiness can open new doors. Sometimes the kindest choice is creating space from what no longer serves you. You deserve relationships filled with trust and genuine care. Let's keep choosing the kind of love that lifts us up. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.